It fell off the global Spotify chart in 2 days, and Drake still tried to talk like he's the one handing out hello and goodbye albums, while his stans are in full panic mode, blaming Karol G, blaming playlists, blaming haters, blaming literally the weather. Anything except the obvious. That verse sounded like a celebrity cameo, not a feature. And the crazy part is, that's not even the real story. Because while everybody is arguing about whether IE is a flop or for the streets, the game is suddenly back in that locked in the studio energy, throwing gasoline on the Kendrick conversation again, right when Drake is doing these streams that keep turning him into a meme factory. And I don't mean haha he's relatable memes. I mean the kind that quietly changes the way people treat you in public, the kind that makes your feature look smaller, your threats sound emptier, and your whole brand feel cheaper. So now you've got 3 lanes colliding at once: the numbers lane, the culture lane, and the industry lane. And if you only watch one of those lanes, you're going to miss why this situation is getting way uglier than a simple song debuted at 95 screenshot. Because later, when I bring up the exact moment in that stream where Drake tries to reassert dominance with the pen isn't dry line, then we stack that next to the chart drop and the stand crash out, you're going to see the problem isn't that Drake is washed, it's that the machine that used to protect him is stalling in real time, and people can feel it. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, and subscribe. Let's get into it. All right, so here's what's happening and why it matters right now. Drake pops up on a Karol G record, big moment on paper, right? 2 massive audiences, 2 huge global lanes, and it's the kind of collab that media pages love because the headline writes itself. Drake goes Latin again, Karol G recruits the biggest feature, all that. And almost immediately, chart pages and fan accounts start trading screenshots of the song debuting on Spotify's global chart around the lower end, with one of the most circulated posts claiming a number 95 debut at roughly 1.5 million streams. Then, this is the part setting everybody off, more screenshots start flying around saying it fell off the global chart basically right after, like day 2. Now, I want to be careful with how we talk about confirmed here, because a lot of this spreads through chart pages, reposts, and fan accounts moving fast, but the perception became the reality within hours. People decided the song came in soft and then it disappeared. And in pop culture, especially Drake culture, perception is the scoreboard. At the same time, you've got Drake doing the stream run where he's talking spicy, like that clip that's been going around where he says he dropped 3 on that head top. Then he points at other people dropping albums like Hello and Goodbye, and then he hits that little warning, careful with that reply, the pen isn't dry. He's basically trying to reinflate the aura on camera. And in the third lane, the game is doing what the game always does, being near drama like it's oxygen. More posts go around saying he's been in the studio, locked in, new music on the way, and people instantly connected to Kendrick because of the history, because of the answer my calls type trolling, because game loves a spectacle. So the audience is split between laughing at the Karol G feature, arguing about Drake's confidence, and side-eyeing James like, oh, you about to do the thing again. And I think we just need to set the truth on what is actually happening here. This isn't just one song flopping. This is a stress test for Drake's whole post-beef image, and it's exposing who's really moving culture versus who's moving content. So let's start with what people can actually see, the surface evidence. First, the audio itself. This is where a lot of the "you can't spin this" energy is coming from. If you listen to that Drake part and your immediate defense was, y'all just hate Drake, okay, but be honest, did it sound hungry? Did it sound like the guy who used to treat every feature like a hostile takeover? Or did it sound like a superstar doing a themed appearance, trying on an accent like it's a jacket, then clocking out? That's why the Spanish verse part became the punchline. Not because Drake can't cross lanes, he's crossed lanes his whole career, but because the delivery felt stiff. The timing felt like he was reading it off a screen. And when the performance feels rented, listeners treat it like a rental. You try it once, you return it, you move on. Second, the chart narrative. Again, based on the most shared posts, a low global debut for a collab of this size, then a quick disappearance. Even if you want to debate exact placement, the cultural point is this: nobody is celebrating the numbers. People are arguing about the numbers. That alone tells you it didn't land like a moment. Because when Drake lands a real moment, the argument isn't, is this a hit? The argument becomes, how big is it going to get? This time, it's, who do we blame? Third, the comment section pattern. You've got one side saying Drake carried, the other side saying Drake sank it, and then the third, most dangerous group, neutral listeners saying I forgot it existed. That's the killer. Not hate, not even jokes, indifference. And fourth, the video clip optics. There's been a lot of mocking around Drake doing the little hand motions, the pistol-type gestures, while the words don't match the energy. That's small on its own, but it stacks with the bigger theme. The Stream King is trying to act dangerous while looking like he's performing danger for the camera. And when the public senses performance, the mystique evaporates. Now, on Karol G's side, what makes this messy is she's not the one getting clowned for effort. A lot of listeners are basically saying, she sounds like she belongs on her own record. So the blame game starts targeting Drake more than her. Then Drake's stans do what they always do. They go looking for a scapegoat with better PR. So what do the stans do? They start trying to reframe it as for the streets, not for charts. Global listeners don't get it. It's a grower. TikTok will save it. Which, okay, sometimes that happens, but you can't run the not for charts line while simultaneously screenshotting every chart achievement like it's a religious text. You can't build your whole identity on numbers and then pretend numbers don't matter the moment a number embarrasses you. Does everybody understand how crazy this actually is? And speaking of crazy, because we have so much to cover today, and trust me, you do not want to miss what is coming up, this is where the Drake stream clip becomes important, because he didn't just have fun, he tried to reestablish hierarchy on camera. That clip, I dropped 3 on that head top, careful with that reply, the pen isn't dry. That's Drake attempting to do a public reset. He's trying to talk like the Degrassi Don is still the final boss, like he can still point at everybody else's albums and call them disposable. But here's the problem. The audience is now applying his own insult to him. Because if you're a casual listener and you watch Drake drop a bunch of music in a short span and the only thing people keep naming is one standout record, maybe 2, then the hello and goodbye line boomerangs. It doesn't matter if the streams are huge, it matters what sticks in the culture. And right now, the culture is treating a lot of Drake's output like fast food. It sells, it fills the moment, and then everybody acts like they didn't eat it. That's why the stream became cringe discourse. Not because Drake can't be goofy. Rappers can be funny. But Drake's goofy moments right now are not being read as charming. They're being read as corny. And corny is the one word that turns a rap superstar into a regular guy with fame. It's the word that makes threats sound like acting exercises. And oh, do I have more. Because while stans are fighting over the Karol G collab, the Kendrick shadow is still hovering over everything Drake does. You can see it in the way people reply to Drake chart posts with Kendrick stats. You can see it in the way Kendrick trends without even speaking. You can see it in the way Drake's own fan base can't stop bringing Kendrick up, even when the topic is supposed to be Drake is winning. And then, like a side quest that keeps turning into the main story, the game pops back out. Let's talk about the cultural evidence layer, the reactions from the community, the fan ecosystems, the hip-hop pages, and the way artist circles move when they smell weakness. On the Karol G Drake record, the culture split is pretty predictable. You've got the stan accounts doing triage, this is a hit in my city, y'all don't go outside, numbers don't reflect impact, it's climbing, wait for the playlist push. Then you've got the anti-Drake side calling it a flop and posting the off-the-chart screenshot like it's a trophy. And then you've got the center saying, honestly, the verse just wasn't good. That middle group is what Drake used to dominate. Drake used to own the middle. That's how he became Drake. He could satisfy stans, irritate haters, and still convert the neutral crowd because the music was undeniable. Right now, the neutral crowd is less converted and more fatigued. Also, culturally, the language angle becomes a way to clown without sounding like a hater. People will say, his accent sounds forced. It sounds like he learned it last night. Or the classic comparison, this sounds like somebody ordering food, not rapping. And those jokes spread because they're easy to repeat. Drake gave people a memeable performance, and memeable does not equal replayable. Then you've got the media pages called it a hit backlash. This is important. A bunch of big pages love to pre-label things smash, hit, song of the summer before the public even decides. When the public rejects it fast, it makes those pages look compromised, or at least overly eager. And once the audience starts thinking the hype is manufactured, every Drake move feels more like marketing than music. Now, pivot to the Kendrick piece of the culture layer. Even when Kendrick isn't doing anything publicly, the conversation keeps snapping back to him like a magnet.
People bring up Not Like Us style momentum as the comparison point for what sticking looks like. They frame it like one guy drops and the world moves, the other guy drops and the fans have to explain it. And you can call that unfair, but that's the new climate. Drake is being graded on impact, not output. That is a brutal shift for an artist who has made output part of the brand.
Now, the game. The game is a unique kind of chaos because he's always half inside the culture and half performing culture. When posts start circulating like Game in the studio all week, people instantly start asking, is he about to say Kendrick's name? Because Game loves to poke and prod and he loves attention. A lot of folks think he'd love a drawn-out back and forth because it keeps him in the headlines. And then you have that LA performance discourse. Clips and comments go around basically clowning Game for leaning on old hits. People saying the show is free for a reason. People making it personal. We don't rock with him like that. And whether you think that's fair or not, it shows the temperature. The culture can turn on you fast when they think you're chasing a moment instead of making one. So culturally, here's where we are. Drake's stans are fighting to protect the brand, Kendrick's presence is still haunting the conversation, and Game is hovering like he wants to attach himself to whatever will trend. Quick mid-script check before we hit the industry pivot. We're roughly at about 2,250 words right here, which is exactly where we need to be for pacing. Now, here comes the pattern interrupt, because if we stay in who sounded good mode, we miss the real mechanics. Here's the hard truth. This is not just about one Drake verse being mid. This is about what happens when a streaming-era superstar runs into the wall of audience trust. In the peak Drake era, a feature was an event because it carried risk. Drake would jump on your record and either elevate it or make it his. There was a sense that he cared about the moment, about the pen, about being undeniable. But the more you flood the market, the more you train the audience to treat your appearances like content drops, not art drops. And the industry loves flooding because flooding juices the metrics. It keeps you in playlists. It keeps you in monthly listeners' headlines. It keeps your catalog warm. But it also quietly devalues each individual record because you're teaching people they don't have to sit with anything. You'll feed them something new next week. So when a record like this Karol G collab shows up and it's not instantly undeniable, the audience doesn't give it time. They swipe. The system trained them to. Second, playlist economics and global charts. Global charts are sensitive to momentum, repeat plays, and how broadly a record travels across regions. If a song debuts low and drops fast, it usually tells you some combination of these things happened. The core fans checked it out, but the general audience didn't stick. The repeat rate wasn't there. It didn't get enough organic lift beyond the initial curiosity spike. That's not haters, that's listener behavior. And this is why the stan crash out is so telling. When stans immediately move to TikTok will save it, they're basically admitting it didn't save itself. They're hoping a separate algorithm manufactures a second life. Third, branding and aura debt. This is the part people hate hearing, but it's real. Drake has always been a branding genius, but branding has a cost when it's not backed by consistent artistic hunger. If you spend months telling people you're still the untouchable guy, then you show up sounding like you're just happy to be there, that's aura debt, and the interest rate is brutal because the internet collects fast. That's why the streams matter. Drake going live isn't automatically bad, but when the vibe is off, it's like HD close-ups of the brand slipping. You're letting the audience watch the character try to convince them he's still the character, and once the audience senses the convincing, it's cooked. Fourth, the post-beef tax. Whether you think Drake won, lost, or tied, he's paying a tax right now, not just from haters, from neutrals who now feel licensed to critique him without fear. Big artists live off intimidation as much as music. The moment people feel like, oh, we can clown him now, every release becomes a referendum. Now, combine all of that with the Karol G collab. Karol G doesn't need Drake to be great in her lane. She has her own engine. So if Drake shows up and doesn't match her energy, the audience won't pretend. They'll just say, why is he here? And that question is deadly for a feature artist whose whole mystique used to be because he makes it bigger. Now, let's drop the major truth bomb because this is the payoff. The flop isn't the chart position. The flop is that Drake's fans had to immediately switch from celebration to explanation. That's the tell. When an artist is really in control of the moment, the fans don't argue, they broadcast.
When the fans argue, they're doing damage control, and damage control is the opposite of aura. And that's why Drake saying, "Careful with that reply," lands weird right now. It's not that Drake can't rap, it's that threats don't hit when the audience thinks you're in your feelings. They start hearing insecurity instead of confidence. The same line that used to sound like a warning now sounds like a guy checking his mentions. So where does Kendrick fit into the hero slot in this story? Not because we're doing Stan War stuff, but because Kendrick represents the opposite strategy: scarcity, intention, and impact. Kendrick can be quiet and still dominate the conversation.
Because the culture trusts that when he moves is for a reason. Drake moves constantly, and right now, the culture is questioning the reason. And the game? The game is the perfect symbol of what happens when you chase relevance instead of building it. Even if he records something aimed at Kendrick, what's the best-case scenario? Kendrick gives him a bar, and Game uses that bar as oxygen for 6 months. Worst-case scenario, Kendrick ignores him, and the culture laughs even harder. Either way, it's still Kendrick as the sun, and other people as planets fighting for warmth. Now, future tease, because this is only the start. If Drake keeps doing these streams, we're going to keep getting moments that the internet can freeze frame and turn into a narrative. If he drops more warning talk, people are going to demand action, not vibes. And if the game really is in the studio with that inspired energy, the question becomes, does he actually say Kendrick's name, and does Kendrick treat him like a threat, a joke, or a ghost? And don't be surprised if the next phase of this isn't even about music, it's about optics, tour footage, crowd energy, what records actually move outside. Because the fastest way to shut down came and went talk is to take it on the road and make it undeniable in real spaces, not just on timelines. So, here's what I want to leave you with. Drake isn't being ended by a Karol G feature. He's being confronted by a new culture that doesn't automatically bow to the brand. And once that spell breaks, every verse has to earn it again. No more autopilot. No more "it's Drake, so it's a hit." The audience is acting like consumers now, not disciples. And if you're Drake, that's a reckoning, because the one thing you can't stream farm is trust. Now, I want you to tell me what you think. Is this Karol G collab genuinely a weak moment that'll be forgotten, or do you think it gets a second life through clips and playlists? And on the game side, do you really think he's bold enough to go direct at Kendrick, or is this just another look at me rollout? Either way, keep your head on a swivel, because the next pen isn't dry moment is going to get tested by the only judge that matters. What actually sticks?